Hey, you. Throughout the course of your PC gaming years, you may or may not have started your space journey with Elite Dangerous, or it was possibly one stop along the way to Star Citizen. When you first hop into Elite, you have your trusty little Sidewinder and a few dusty credits. Millionaire status looks so far away, it seems fictional. But then you come across a mission that pays a lot of credits that you're eligible for. Take a passenger on a tour of some location in space. Well, hell, that sounds right. Make a lot of money taking somebody on a tour in space, you sign up immediately. But, damn, there's a but. The trip is super far away and the I.C.E.S jump range is super short and you don't know how to scoop stars for fuel or even that you need to do that. You don't really know what you're doing, period. So, after several complaints about the delay, your passenger finally has enough and rather than tolerate your terrible service, they eject themselves out of the ship, which you gotta admit is a hilarious way to deal with a bad driver. Epic fail. But the idea still sticks with you. The whole concept is very cool. You can grab a single rider, a bunch of riders, VIPs, shady folks with a target on their back, sightseeing tours, one-way trips, round trips, and you gotta keep folks satisfied or reject those CETO, cuz. Being a space Uber driver in the sci-fi world is your cup of Earl Grey. So you do your Googles and find out everything there is to know about passenger transport and of course, how to scoop fuel. Kick off your career, make money, upgrade your ship, buy new ships, and crank your status up. You're now a self-made rock star in the world of transportation. Then, after you're all moneyed up, you start noticing something big is missing. Flying around the galaxy is cool, but that's really all it is. Beyond the name on the mission board, the passengers are just kind of theoretical. No ship interiors, no passengers to see, no real interactions, and nothing immersive. It's just kind of flying back and forth while numbers move around on a spreadsheet. Now the honeymoon is over, and passenger missions just became a grind. Passenger missions have never been fleshed out in any space game. If you know of one, let me know. Starfield is pretty cool because you can see the passengers board your ship, hang out on your furniture, then debark at the destination in the middle of nowhere and immediately get killed by the local fauna. Then I noticed something in Star Citizen. There was a ship called the Genesis Starliner, and it looked familiar because, crazy enough, I unknowingly put a pic of it in an Elite Dangerous vid. So I dug up and read everything I could on it. Videos, RSI posts, Reddit speculation. I was insatiable. Pause. It was a passenger ship that you could tailor to suit the type of service that you want to deliver. Different comfort tiers and in-flight services, and since it's Star Citizen, you see everything. Walk around it and see the passengers, the staff, the amenities, plus everything else that goes with being a people boat captain in a universe where you're a person in a ship rather than just being the ship. So I had to know, could this finally be the space travel experience that Elite was missing? And then the discovery that it doesn't exist yet. Damn it, man. After years of putting it out of mind and then lately Star Citizen technical milestones being achieved, is once again worth asking questions like, well, where the hell are passenger missions in? How will they work? I'm not ashamed to say it's an incredibly nerdy pursuit. It is, but I'm here for it, and maybe you are too. So take a ride with me on this breakdown of passenger transport. Go ahead and hop in the Space Whip and plug into the aux cable. Like up, sub up, and ring up like a boss.
The possibilities for passenger transit are one of the most exciting and gameplay rich things for me. Passenger transport has been, I don't know why. I have no idea why it absolutely fascinates me, but I think it's the idea of interactive cargo. Yeah. I think it's the idea of cargo that can get sick, cargo that can get pissy, cargo that can yell at me or get into fights with each other.
It's probably the gameplay loop that'll best drive home the feeling of running a business within the verse. You're the owner-operator of a space passenger concern. On the surface, passenger gameplay doesn't sound like a tough thing to develop. NPCs board your ship, sit down, then exit at their destination. Doesn't feel like a big enough job to still be waiting on. Or is it that simple?
Maybe something as simple as picking up a group of NPCs from one place and dropping them off at another place.
Oh, as simple as that.
As simple as that. Just herding a bunch of NPCs and getting them to go into one place and getting them all to sit down, getting them all to strap in, and then fly them up, and then getting them to get up, and then getting them to get off the ship. Very simple, Luke.
Yeah, I'll get on that. There are so many ways on and off of ships, obviously, but
yeah, there's another one.
And it's easier to get off of a ship than it is to get back on it, as I'm sure all players know who have landed on an uneven surface, right? So obviously they'll be probably done from landing pads or at least some flat ground. Mm-hmm. I imagine if we can get AI off of a ship, we can also get AI on a ship, and they should be able to use all the same animations that players do to sit in the locations that players sit in. Again, if you want to do this properly, we want dialogue. Otherwise, there'd be like these mute kind of. It'd be like basically moving cargo with legs around. You want to kind of entertain them as well. You don't want to just have them again cargo with legs, just sat there happy. You want missions that want you to take them places, like see certain things, and then we have to make it like the lore system be able to understand kidnapping for a start.
What happens when you blow up a ship full of 30 NPCs? What does that do to your crime stat?
I don't know. If hijackers come on and like start waving the gun around, what do these guys do? I'm sure it sounds simple. It's not. Yeah. It's not that simple, but we have the beginnings of this.
So it's a lot more complicated than it seems. Since this aired at the end of 2019, some of the things mentioned have been achieved. NPC pathing works well enough to board and dismount a ship. Out in the field, you might have seen enemy ships land, open up the ramp, and troops pour out. Maybe you heard some dialogue between NPCs and landing zones or out in the field.
I'll just say there's good creds to be made there.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with this.
When Luke Presley mentioned what do passengers do when somebody boards your ship waving a gun, right now NPCs have the cowering animation and some of them take off running. Maybe they'll add sky marshals that defend the cabin. But yeah, there's still some behavioral things to work out. The new crime and punishment system got to be worked out, and some other features like NPC crew need to be implemented first. Having server meshing online frees up the technical resources needed to make it happen though. That being the case, it's not the most distant thing in the world at this point. So how will it work? You already know CIG isn't going to do the really basic transport just to have it in there. That's just not what they do. Just like how mining has several steps like locating a suitable deposit, offering several gadgets and mining heads to help extract the material without redlining the energy transfer, to figuring out the best refining process, then taking the finished product to market. There's a lot involved. Tony Z posted a breakdown of how civilian passenger transport would work. As you probably know, Mr. Zurafek goes big with the details, so here's a slightly more distilled version of it. Slightly. FYI, a lot of this information is several years old, but as I do the diligence for these breakdowns, I found that most of what's been stated from back then and then made its way into the game so far is pretty close, if not one-to-one, true to the original vision. Everything is subject to change, but we're rolling with the best information we got. First off, it's super regulated, so you need a clean record and you'll need to obtain a license at the offices of all the landing zones you want to operate in. A recurring fee will be required to maintain your license, and the amount will be based on the amount of traffic in those areas. This is already weeding out the folks who are already impatient at the pace of Star Citizen. For the folks like myself who find immersion in the details, it'll be cool to travel to all the locations you want to operate in ahead of time and get a lay of the land. Maybe scout the traffic going to other locations so you can start creating your network of preferred routes. The recurring fee for your license is good because if you've been around long enough, you know we don't have enough money sinks to stay motivated to keep earning a year after a patch drops. So the more money sinks, the better. Larger passenger ships with efficient engine upgrades and efficient crews will need to fill up their seats to turn a profit, and so we'll focus on the larger transport hubs. This will drive ticket prices down in those areas. Smaller ships and less experienced operators will focus on smaller traffic areas, which will cause it to take longer to sell out the seats on their ships. Passenger demand in these areas will be for shorter distance budget flights, Spirit Airlines, but there will be better profit margins and less competition in these lanes and less need for advanced ships and crews. Sounds like for folks who invest a lot into their ships, it's going to take a while to get into the black. Besides the credit expense, with what we know from CitizenCon about crafting, it's going to take a decent amount of effort to get your ship tip top. The best materials to build the best components will take some doing. Then you got your overhead expenses, fuel, supplies, payroll, etc. This is a serious undertaking to stay afloat in this career with a bigger ship. It makes one wonder how much more revenue can you actually generate with a bigger ship than a smaller luxury craft. This was written before you could tractor beam furniture onto your cargo hold, but he goes on to mention specialized passenger ships being a requirement. So either that requirement has changed or it could just be specifically for commercial runs, which could just be one category among a few. Anywho, there will be coach, business class, first class, luxury class, with most ships only having one or two of these comfort options. Whether a ship is classified as short or long range is determined by fuel capacity, consumable storage capacity, and engine efficiency. The Genesis Starliner is billed as a long-range luxury transport with features that make long-range transportation more tolerable, such as high seating capacity, fuel-efficient engines, and advanced quantum stabilizer to minimize vibration-induced nausea, private sleeping cabins, as well as some other features not listed here. Once you have your ship and you have your license, you park on a public landing pad and connect to the local flight schedule computer to view the traffic, popular destinations, and average ticket price for each comfort class. Then you set your destination, ticket prices, departure, and estimated arrival time. Once you publish that info, passengers can start purchasing tickets, and depending on the variables you set, like destination and departure time, passengers can start leaving the customs area and begin boarding. You can view how many unsold seats you have left in real time and change the price at any time, but you can't change your departure and arrival times without canceling the flight, which will hurt your reputation. I've never been into Sims where you're basically the big comptroller in the sky creating budgets and managing resources, but this is right up my alley without going too far overboard. Being able to live or die in the planning stage of your space line delivers a challenge that's worth putting some thought into and is well beyond what I was doing in Elite. In short, I'm for it. Reputation determines whether your license is temporarily revoked and how much of a discount or premium on your ticket prices you'll be able to successfully sell against competitors that have identical levels of services. Reputation is measured through how well travelers are being safely delivered to their destination and their overall satisfaction. Ticket class determines how forgiving the passengers are. First and luxury class will obviously be more demanding and harder to please than the budget customers who pursued price over comfort. Higher tier seating classes expect superior service, higher quality food and drink, a greater selection of entertainment offerings, prompt medical treatment, and better access to shipboard facilities. This means you want experienced crew and higher quality crafted food, drink, and other amenities. I'm anxious to see what the entertainment offerings will consist of. Better access to shipboard facilities. Does this mean priority access to bathrooms and lounges? There's going to be a bouncer standing outside the bathroom telling the coach passengers they're not on the list. Passengers will order food and services through a UI that connects to a system called I.C.E.S, Information, Communication, and Entertainment System. The UI is described as being through a holo display, but I imagine that'll be probably changed to a screen. I.C.E.S blades operate in the hardware room and can sometimes fail, which means you or your crew need to check on these and quickly swap out the blades if they burn out, assuming that you stocked extras. Besides burning out, there can be other things that go wrong with I.C.E.S that you have to make sure are remedied. For example, radio interference can prevent a connection with the blades and can be remedied by, quote, player quickly matching a set of binary filters to a hexadecimal status code before the interfering frequency and offsetting status code change. Or recalibration of a misaligned audio processor can be accomplished via pressing a sequence of 8 buttons associated with musical notes to match a test melody whose length is dictated by the extent of the failure. Or carefully soldering a loose connection while ensuring that the main circuit board isn't damaged in the process can remedy contact failures. Maybe all that sounds more complicated than it actually is, but it sounds complicated. Doing nothing will cause your rep to fail, so complicated or not, you better figure it out. Mixed drinks seem to be a staple of flights, so your passengers will order them through I.C.E.S, which gets transmitted to the Mixmaster. Mixmaster is a drink mixer that holds 8 different beverages and has rotating nozzles to dispense them. On the unit, there's buttons labeled 1 through 8 and a code for the drink the passenger ordered, as well as the amount of time you have to serve it. Drink code 1148 means 2 parts of beverage 1, 1 part beverage 4, and 1 part beverage 8. Together, those ingredients make a blue nebula. How well you get the ratio correct determines the quality of the drink. If you mess it up, you can toss it and start over. But you've got a limited supply of ingredients, so choose wisely, Chef Gordon Drinksy. Once you make a drink, it moves down a mini conveyor belt where it sits until you or a crewmate are ready to deliver it to the passenger. Lower tier seats will be more forgiving for badly mixed or slowly delivered drinks than first or luxury passengers. So even bartending is going to require some skill, and the more help you have pouring or serving, the better you'll maintain your rep.
We kept our rep, bro.
If we're putting in the effort to buy these drink machines and pour the tastiest of beverages, we better be getting paid for each drink. Plus tips, no all-inclusive packages, man. Free peanuts, pretzels, and blocks of salt. Drinks 3,000 credits. That'll offset some overhead. Acquiring a ship and a license is just the beginning. Upgrading your ship with the features named before, like extra storage and quantum stabilizers, will take some time. Sourcing quality ingredients and components will be especially important for higher tier seats. No matter how well you portion out the ingredients for a Blue Nebula or a Harry Roberts, restocking your bar at a manufacturing plant is gonna make for more inferior drinks than if you acquired your stock at a location known for fine liquors. Upgrading your movie library is a task to handle. The popularity of the films in your library affects passenger satisfaction, as does the percentage of time they had access to them, so you gotta keep your I.C.E.S units tip-top, Tommy. Movies are classified as either classic or modern. Classic movies retain their popularity because they're, well, classics, so you don't have to keep turning your inventory with those, although really popular classic films will be hard to find. The popularity of modern movies will decline over time, so you do gotta turn that inventory. Hunting down good copies of movies is kind of a a funny side quest to run in an airline. Spaceline makes me think of DJs and producers digging through the records in the mom and pop record shops back in the day, trying their best to find the perfect sound. Not everybody's gonna see it like this, but there's kind of a romantic quality to it. Not like romantic love, but like how folks romanticize the cowboy era, despite the horrors and lack of a decent appletini. Picturing talking to a Tony Soprano type guy in a cool bar in the mountains who happens to have a copy of a rare film you want, and you gotta do something a little unsavory to get it in trade. Do you risk your rep for it? Maybe outsource it to somebody else for 1 million credits? Could get interesting there. Medical treatment is pretty wild. You gotta monitor whether or not that cough that the passenger in seat 1F has is also accompanied by chest pains and shortness of breath, whether a sore neck becomes accompanied by itching. Symptoms gradually reveal themselves and you can input them into a computer to identify the illness, but learning the signs of the illness will make for a quicker diagnosis and allow you to deal with it quickly and build a higher rep. You'll have a medical supply cabinet with items to diagnose or treat passengers, but you'll need to be accurate because administering the wrong medicine can make things even worse. The time and accuracy of how well you deal with ill passengers can alleviate or create fear or even contagion. Fearful passengers will become paranoid that the others near the sick passengers are also becoming sick. They'll turn and stare at them, creating more fear in the cabin, which will reduce your rep. Some illnesses are contagious, so a slow response could create an epidemic in your ship, which is grounds for your transport license to become suspended. That is hilarious that a routine flight can suddenly become out of control, and I can't wait to see the first videos of a flying epidemic. If you can't contain it, will your ship get quarantined? You're sitting on a tarmac waiting for doctors in outbreak monkey suits to come clear your ship and cart the passengers off in a white Anvil Spartan. So there's a ton to take care of on a passenger ship. Tony said an experienced solo player might be able to handle a ship with 20-30 seats, but bigger ships will require some buddies to help out and be assigned different roles or functions within those roles. NPC crew will also be a good resource to leverage, which is a big enough feature that I dedicated an entire video to that for you to check out. Link at the end of the video. Once you actually make it through a flight and touch down, you give the all clear from the cockpit and passengers begin debarking and rating their experiences. You can force passengers off at any public landing zone, but it's extremely detrimental toward keeping your license. After everybody exits, you can submit a new flight plan, refuel, restock supplies, and head out for another trip to make that Credicini Alfredo. As much stuff as that is, that's just a civilian transportation aspect. From what I've gathered, it looks like there will be military transport missions that'll make use of the jump seats in ships like the Prowler and the Valkyrie. Maybe there's a different license or other requirements for taking troops into hot zones. Maybe VIP transport has its own set of requirements rather than just luxury accommodations. For example, maybe a full turret crew, armed protection, and fighter ship escorts. But that's speculation. What they have stated is that just about any ship with a second seat could be used as transport. Some NPCs won't mind sitting in the co-pilot seat of a Caterpillar, while the majority will seek more commercial means of transportation. I would think NPCs willing to ride shotgun in your Banu Defender will probably be likely found in areas with small amounts of traffic, out in the backwoods. I hope to see situations where you pick up passengers like this, not knowing that they've been greenlit by some faction, and suddenly this routine last flight before logging off and going to bed becomes a race for your life. Getting pursued by more ships than you can handle, trying to make it to an armed space station like in the movies when the good guys just have to make it across the border where there's military protection to defend them. That'll get the adrenaline pumping. In addition to the more common commercial flights, prisoner transport will be a thing. That's something that you'd have to configure your ship for ahead of time. Space tourism will also be a thing. In Elite Dangerous, this pretty much consisted of flying to a beacon floating out in space or sitting on an empty moon reading some text, then going back to where you started. In the verse, at minimum, you'd expect to see some locations where there's actually something to tour, like the Javelin crash site, the world's largest replace me ball, various gas clouds, or traveling comets that explorers have discovered and shared the data with you. Maybe tourists will even be able to get out of the ship to inspect them and take selfies. Whatever happened to NPCs taking selfies? I used to photobomb them on the way to my hangar, but you just never see them anymore. Anywho, making sure tourists don't remove their helmet for a selfie at the air and halo gates will get a little tricky, but where's the fun without some complications and danger? But Star Citizen is never short on danger. The first thing a lot of folks would think to do is pose as passengers and hijack the ship or rob everybody. As interesting as that can make things on occasion, I'm not sure that's going to be possible. One, security will probably be pretty tight before you board the ships. You move from customs where you'll be scanned to a hangar or landing pad, so unless you can bypass customs with a different route to the ship or craft undetectable weapons, your heist will turn into a comedic short film pretty quick. Two, I'm not quite sure that it'll be possible to do this on player-owned commercial liners in the first place. An old Q&A for the Genesis Starliner explains that they envision mention 3 types of Starliners in the finished verse. 1, those run by players to transport NPCs, player-run businesses. 2, those run by NPCs to transport both NPCs and players who need to go from place to place without a ship. 3, those run by players who adapt them for their own purposes. Quote, you'll be able to either use your Starliner to run passenger missions, or you'll be able to chart your own course with other players like any other ship in the verse. So if commercial liners only transport NPCs, and hopefully that's not the case, but if it is, and you want to rob or hijack a player-operated ship full of Richie Rich types, you'll have to locate it, then disable and board the ship. And on a Genesis, that'll be a tough party to crash due to all the redundant systems in place for that exact scenario. The opportunities will be there though. A mantis parked in a well-known space traffic lane can light up the quantum snare and reel them in like a wild marlin. Going back to the NPC only thing, that'd be real shame not to be able to hop on another player's commercial route to get where you're going.
That's all I'm going to do in game. People are always like, Disco, what are you going to do in game? I'm just going to fly around picking people up. I'm just like, when you get into a Starliner, you got a 50-50 chance that it's going to be Disco piloting it.
Lately, just claiming ships everywhere you go like it's going out of style is kind of going out of style. A lot of folks are stocking their ships with weapons and other items and prefer not to lose them by claiming them. So being able to just catch a quick flight that's going your way would be preferable to putting up a beacon and hoping for the best. Maybe that's just me though.
We want claim timers to be proportional to the crafting timers. This means it's more beneficial for you to go back and get your original ship.
Modularity, the ability to throw seats on your cargo grid, and the ability to carry passengers in your other seats means just about any ship can do passenger runs. But there's only a few dedicated ships for commercial passenger transport missions to build up your travel empire with. So which ones are they? The Crusader E1 Spirit is the most recent addition to concept passenger liners. With its focus being executive transportation, it can accommodate up to 6 VIPs. Their individual cubicle-like passenger cabins can be closed off from the rest of the fuselage to create privacy for travelers during their flight. And the panoramic windows give every E1 rider some of the best views in the verse, second only to 890 Jump's Observation Lounge. Travelers also have access to restrooms and individual storage compartments. Flight crew have access to a small living area behind the cockpit with a kitchenette, restroom, weapon rack, 2 suit lockers, and 2 beds, both with overhead storage. The E1's cargo hold has storage space with a separate luggage compartment, and in case things go sideways, the ship has an escape raft. The C1 and A1 variants have been great daily drivers, partially due to their size, so if you've been in one, you know that's quite a lot to pack into a Crusader Spirit frame. The Crusader Genesis Starliner. This ship takes you back to the old school where folks didn't just rush to catch a cramped, uncomfortable flight in steerage. Reminiscent of when folks put on suits for a luxurious experience, with a lot of leg room, gourmet meals, stylish passengers and crew, and lounges to mingle in, minus the smoking, unsafe conditions, and discrimination. There's not a ton of info about this well-secret kept adept concept, but we do know this. The Genesis is super modular, so you can configure it to accommodate 40 travelers or fill it with luxury staterooms. 3 floors of supercalifragilisticness, possibly including an observation room up top to give it room for Fifth Element Flossed in Paradise levels of insane. It's supposed to have super fuel efficient Neo-G engines to keep you grooving in them space lanes, and VTOL fans embedded in the wings for smooth takeoffs and landings. There was mention of an advanced quantum stabilizer to minimize occurrences of vibration-induced nausea, private sleeping cabins, and much more to remove all the discomfort from an extended voyage. But I imagine those will be upgrades you need to craft your way to or purchase, but we'll see. Genesis ain't the shit that you want to stop and fight off attackers with, so it's set up for surviving the day with several redundant components that kick in when the primaries go down, and enough speed to get away. Probably why it's the ship chosen as Imperator 1, the Imperator's version of Air Force 1, or Imperator if you like that better. The one bad thing is the very ugly prospect of CIG redesigning it to fit into the cookie-cutter Crusader design. Look at this thing, it's beautiful, but supposedly it's gonna look more like the Spirit. The Spirit's a pretty good looking ship, but let the Spirit be the Spirit and the Genesis be the hotness. It's like when Chrysler cars were all small, medium, and large versions of the same Chrysler 300. It's more work for John Crew and company, but the Genesis we've admired and waited on all these years, it's a genuine work of art, a Tour de France. Force, worthy of more than checking off a list of completed ships. Those are the only 2 commercial passenger ships, but there's also the touring class ships, which are technically for passengers, but since they have an assortment of baked-in rooms rather than seats, we don't really know if the services are the same. Do they have I.C.E.S servers, Mixmaster, and movies? Will you be able to install medical cabinets to take care of illnesses? These are the questions, people. But since any ship can carry NPC passengers for a fee, here's a quick look at what we got. The 890 Jump is the big boy eggshell white on the Cadillac space yacht. What can I say about this boat that has hasn't already been said about America. It's bloated, it's opulent, and most folks can't afford to live in it. Surprisingly, it only has 4 passenger rooms on the entire ship, but they quite swanky. By contrast, there's 8 crew rooms, including the Capitans. The ship has a bar and a restaurant, crazy observation/great room, and a ton of other amenities wrapped in posh decor. The 600i Touring Edition is a great looking ship, but really everybody waiting on a sexy flexy rework that'll completely transform this thing from shake to bake. Connie Phoenix is like a cool Airbnb. Hot tub, full bar, 2 smaller bedrooms with that fish tank swank, and a bigger bedroom that has a window everybody can see through for some spacey voyeur action. 400i. Love this ship, but it's got a little bit of an identity crisis. You might be saying, nah, this is an Explorer. Yes, but is that what it's being pitched as here, with the woman holding her carry-on luggage and the guy showing her that the itinerary does not have a stop at Planet Birkenbag? What about this chap strutting up the ramp on his way from Sausalito to a redacted head in the clouds trip? Which exploration ship in the United Federation of Planets has roses, 5 wine glasses, and 3 champagne flutes? Empty candelabras? The answer is probably all of them, but they have replicators. CIG even called it a space yacht.
It's still that sort of luxury yacht.
I'm just saying this looks suspiciously like it doubles as a passenger ship, so it's in the video. But then do you just give NPCs your crew beds, or maybe throw a futon and mini fridge in the cargo hold? What are we doing here? So just a couple dedicated commercial passenger ships and 1 and a possible 2 touring ships with space for NPCs. Obviously, we need some love in this category. I think CIG could probably take a break from cranking out shooty bang bang ships for a bit to show some career ship love. Alright, so we got the ships, or at least a few of them. The tech exists. Why haven't we at least got a tier 1 version of passenger transport? Dependencies and priorities, my friend. A dependencies chart would go a long way for everybody's understanding of why they can't put the cart before the horse, at least for some folks. Building a game with tech that has to be created instead of just improved on, every new feature has a string of dependencies that had to come before it. Folks used to get upset that they prioritized bartender behavior before implementing whatever feature they were most excited for, or the legendary coffee cup that somebody abandoned hours or days ago that you can find on some random planet. But both of those represent tech and ongoing development that have to be nailed down before the passengers come out to play. Besides fleshing out what happens when one of the many possibilities occurs on a passenger ship, you gotta build subsumption, which is NPC behavior, but not just a single NPC's behavior, but the behavior that emerges as one behavior interacts with another's different behavior, and with the environment and items available in it, as well as them navigating through their daily lives.
Sort of higher level AI system that we have that sort of runs the daily lives of the AI and allows them to sort of, get up in the morning, go do their job, go get lunch somewhere, go back to the job, then go home, go to sleep, etc.
Their behavior probably won't scale to the levels of the robotics definition of emergent behavior, so CIG's subsumption may just consist of sense, think, act, as they reprioritize their next action to deal with the current situation. However deep or shallow it ends up, that's another scheduled item to check off before you're over-serving your passengers blue nebulas in the sleeper cabins. I don't know this for sure, but dynamic server meshing may need to be implemented first. We got static server meshing now, which has us moving from server to server without even realizing it as we move between planets, except for when your quantum drive stops on you. The Genesis Starliner can fit up to 40 passengers, all with their own subsumption, entities, and physics as they move about the ship. So I wouldn't say it's out of the question to want to be able to spin up a new server in case you and your 40 passengers plus crew come up against an Idris with a large crew, boarding party, support ships, who then attract more folks responding to a distress beacon. Probably won't ever be a common occurrence, but it can. And if it can, there has to be server infrastructure in place to support it. And that's a plausible reason for passenger missions not making the 1.0 cut. There is a method to the madness.
I want to see progression across all professions, and hopefully people start to see, and it's the reason why we wanted to talk about 1.0, people start to see how all these things connect together. There's a reason why we did all these things over the last 2 or 3 years. It's not like we were just throwing a dart at the dartboard and hoping that, what feature is next. We had, it's that grand plan about trying to bring them all together. But ultimately, we want to be in a position where we can start to focus and connect all of the gameplay systems.
In my mind, 1.0 will probably drop mid to late 2027 at the earliest, so it could possibly be a few years before you get to walk the aisles of your Spaceliner in your white Captain Stubing uniform observing the passengers. Hopefully sooner, but there's still plenty of things to do in the game till then. But I may just have to force myself to go do a little spreadsheet Uber driving in Elite just for old time's sake. I mentioned NPC crew as being a necessary functional feature for passenger place, so check out this vid if you want to see what that's all about or just need a refresher. Big coffee, cakes, and milk shout out to the executive producer Patreons in the building. Eyes Open 2018, Lone Wolf, and The Huntress. Thanks for making it do what it do and supporting. Shout out to all the fam de la dig that, Patreons, YouTube members, and super chatters, and folks visiting the Boss Supply merch store. Appreciate you, boss. Fly dirty, citizen.